Welcome to Love Lately, the podcast where we dive into the real conversations about love, relationship, and all the joys and challenges that come along with finding love and keeping it after 50.
Okay, so look, whether you're looking for love, starting over, or navigating the ins and outs of long-term commitment, we're just here to share our journey and the insights we've discovered with you.
I'm Lee, and this is my husband, Ron, and we definitely don't have all the answers. Like, trust me, we do not have all the answers. But we have many questions, and we want to unpack them with you. We will talk about what love looks like in this stage of life and how we can make it work.
So grab your favorite drink, get comfortable, and join us for honest, heartfelt, faith-filled conversations that remind us all it is never too late for love.
Welcome to Love Lately. All right. Welcome to Love Lately. I'm Lee.
Hi, guys. I'm Ron.
And we are back. It's been a minute since we put out our last episode. We have been super busy.
Yes.
And we're going to talk about that, not in this episode, but in the next episode, what happens when life gets busy. But we'll come to that. We're going to talk about another topic that is super interesting.
Yes, very interesting. There's hundreds of different opinions and thoughts about this, but we're going to try to not make it too controversial. We just need you to chime in, give us your thoughts, comments about it, some feedback. You know, it's always helpful.
Yep.
And we're just going to try to give our take and our perspective on things.
Yes. So tell them the topic.
Well, the topic today is going to be on intimacy.
Intimacy.
Intimacy and our sex lives.
Yeah. That's really important. And remember that really the purpose of our podcast is for people to find and keep love, especially when it's your second chapter maybe, or your first chapter, but over 50. But it can be younger, but we're going to talk about that. And sometimes things can get a little bit more complicated sometimes when we get older, just because we've lived a life, we have stronger opinions, all of the things.
Yes. I like to say we're seasoned.
We're
seasoned. We've been through some things. We've experienced life. We kind of have found our little niche in life, and we're looking for those things. And we always talk about things that are going to enhance our lives, bring positivity, bring peace, bring light, and just make things better in our lives. And so, you know, we're seasoned and we've kind of found our niche in life. And so in relationships, you know, intimacy and our sex lives are always, most of the time, an integral part in our lives. And so we're just trying to find out where that fits in, you know. And so we need your feedback. We want your thoughts about this. And, you know,
make sure you drop it in the comments and share, like, subscribe. If I have not said already, please subscribe to the channel. Yes. Okay. So let's define intimacy. What do you believe intimacy is?
Well, my thoughts on intimacy, it's completely opposite of sex. You know, for me, intimacy is that thing that I find with my person that just gives me that connection. When I need that connection. My love language is physical touch. Physical touch, words of affirmation. And I love those moments when we're just connecting, whether it's you have your foot in my lap, or we're driving and I'm holding your hand, or I have my hand rested on your thigh. Or it can be in those quiet moments when you know that you're with your person, you're in your space, there's peace, inner and outward peace. Inner and outward peace. And those moments are just satisfying, and they give you that sense of closeness and connection. So intimacy for me is not just physical or related to sex. It's just a connection. It's a connection. It's a vibe.
So intimacy for me, very similar, but I think maybe a simple way to think about it for me, connection is important, and it can be wrapped up in this, but to be known by someone physically, emotionally, spiritually, and intellectually. And I think there's nothing better than to have someone in life that knows you.
Yes.
And I think there's an intimacy in that.
Yes, absolutely. Definitely an intimacy in that. It's just like, say, you're a person. You know that person. You know that person mentally. Mm-hmm. You have that connection spiritually.
Right.
You have that connection physically. And you know when there's something going on or when everything is okay, and you kind of sense and know when things aren't okay. Intimacy can be a moment where you kind of just feel, you know, your person, and you feel that there's something wrong, and you pose a question, you know, are you okay?
Right. Yeah.
You know,
or I was watching a video, and this man was talking about, 30 seconds to increase intimacy in your marriage. And he said, go home and ask your spouse, tell me about your deepest dream. And and that, how can that not, create intimacy if the person is being really honest and sincere. So intimacy, being known, having that connection, and it's not just physical. There's emotional, spiritual intimacy.
Yes.
Of course, we talked about the physical.
Yes.
And
also for me, feeling safe.
Yeah, that's big.
Feeling safe to be vulnerable, feeling safe to be emotional, feeling safe to answer those questions.
Right, because some people may not want to answer those questions.
So I think it's important that you find a safe space with your partner.
Right.
Where you can feel safe, where your emotions and your vulnerability is safe.
Right.
And you're able to open up. That's true intimacy, I think, for me.
Yeah.
When you're able to allow someone in, not physically, but to allow someone in emotionally, to allow someone in mentally, to allow someone in spiritually, and develop those connections. For me, that's pretty much almost more important than the physical connection, because after the physical is over,
what's left?
Then what's next?
Yeah.
What is it?
And I mean, honestly, it should improve the physical when there's an emotional and spiritual and intellectual intimacy there.
Yeah. I love cake, but sometimes frosting on the cake makes it a little better. The frosting is just the physical sex, but I love the substance of the cake.
Right.
I love that substance. That substance that creates that cake, all the ingredients that make it yummy.
Yes.
Yummy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about what happens in marriage. Okay, wait, before I go to what happens when intimacy needs to be rekindled, let's talk about, put a pin in the physical intimacy for just a minute.
Yes.
How important, because I know you said emotional, spiritual intimacy is really important to you.
Yes.
It's the cake for you.
Yes.
How important is chemistry
Yes.
and physical intimacy in a relationship, in a marriage?
It is important. And I think those small moments of intimacy build that chemistry. It builds that chemistry for when we, going to do what we do. Mm-hmm. There's that connection that just makes all of that, for me anyway, more enjoyable. But
I mean, like, you have to be physically, because you could be best friends with somebody and have all of those. I know them. We have great conversation, but that doesn't necessarily equate to a great physical connection all the time.
This is just my opinion, but I think the first attraction, most of the time, 90% of the time, the first attraction is always the physical attraction.
Right. There has to be a physical connection.
Yes. And I think there has to be a physical connection. It's hard to, for me.
For you.
I want to, look at my person, and see that person and just like yummy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yummy,
I think that's what we're going to name this episode.
Yeah, yummy. And in all aspects of our lives, even if we're, first thing in the morning, with all the night's sleep still all over you, still yummy.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
So that's physical intimacy or a physical attraction.
Yes.
Is important. Having chemistry.
Yes. Yes.
So do you think, like, because again, I think about some of my friends, I think about people in their 50s, 60s, older, they may be dating or around people that would not have physically been their first choice.
Yes. Yes.
Is it worth pursuing or seeing if something's there, or if you don't check all the physical boxes, is that?
And that's, I think that's where we need some feedback. You know what I mean? Because
Yes,
feedback and some comments, because physical attraction is not everything, but of course we know some situations, some relationships where there is a lack of a physical attraction, but the relationship still seems to be moving forward. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I think those intimate moments, those moments of connection, emotionally, spiritually, intellectually, those can start to strengthen that attraction, where the physical attraction may not be as strong as it's been in other relationships. Or
Right.
I think those moments can strengthen the attraction in the relationship. You know what I
Right,
mean?
right.
So some people aren't into the physical.
Yeah.
They want an intellectual connection. They want a spiritual connection, and so those things are important if it's important to you, that
Yeah.
you have those things,
But I think also, because I remember, not saying that I wasn't physically attracted to you, because I was. But when we first kind of had our first physical interaction where we met each other, we had met each other. We were kind of starting a long distance type relationship, and we met each other at the airport.
Layover.
A layover he had in Atlanta.
Yes.
And there was a moment when he touched me and I felt some type of physical chemistry just, erupt, I guess.
Yes.
And so I'm also thinking that sometimes, again, physically we have, especially women, sometimes we have these checklists in our minds of what we want physically, but there could be some magnetic chemistry going on even if all of the physical things don't check off.
Yes. And I remember you telling me that physical touch was not big on your list.
Yes.
It was not high on your list. And so that experience for you was a new experience. It was an experience for me because I felt it too. I think I was the first one to mention what I felt in that moment when I touched my thigh.
Yes.
It was just a slight reach, a slight touch, and I instantly felt this amazing charge of energy and chemistry.
Yeah.
I mentioned it, and you kind of mentioned that you felt the same thing, but it was something new and different for you because the physical thing was not necessarily your thing.
High on the list.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I think it's worth exploring those new feelings.
Yeah.
Those things that are new that may not have been high or a priority on your list. Explore intimacy, explore feelings, explore sexuality, explore those moments that are new to you. Don't, because it's different. We've always talked about getting into things that I've never done or are different for me. And sometimes if you have always done what you've always did, you're going to keep getting what you always got.
Yeah.
And so sometimes it's good to explore a new feeling, a new thought.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. I agree.
Yes.
So let's talk a little bit about, for those of you who may be in a relationship, marriage, and the intimacy needs to be rekindled. Because I was reading and researching on this topic, and it's probably very well known. There's a research study by a company organization called Gottman and Gottman, and they talk about is it oxytocin, but it's a hormone in us that we have when we first meet someone, and the euphoria, the wonderful feelings that we have, and we cannot expect that to last forever. It's not meant to last forever.
Right. Right.
So there's seasons
Right.
of intimacy.
Right.
And so when intimacy does wane a bit in a marriage or relationship, how do we rekindle? How do we come back? Sometimes, especially in this world, in this society now, I think when we don't feel the intimacy, we think it's time to leave, right? We think the relationship is over, the marriage is over, this is not working, instead of seeing it as this is an opportunity for us to do different work, more work, dig deeper. So let's talk about rekindling when intimacy needs to be rekindled.
I think as human beings, I think we all desire that connection,
Right.
that intimacy, that feeling that that just that need is being met. I think it's important to understand the needs of take the time to understand the needs of your partner.
Yeah.
Know what resonates with them. I think we've talked about that in a previous episode. To take the time, you mentioned intimacy, someone knowing you.
Yes.
And getting to know that person, and you get to know when that person's need is not being met.
Yeah.
Being connected enough to know that, okay, then let's have this conversation. Are you okay? What is it that you need? Or being connected enough to know that, I need to meet that need.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that going back to something you said about, being in tune with your partner and understanding their needs, understanding that every individual has different seasons and goes through different things where their needs may change, and understanding what season your spouse is in.
Right. I mean, yes, because neither of us are in our 20s any longer. Where if it's, the physical intimacy that we desire, things were when we were younger. It was that was just the top thing on the list because it was pretty much where our development was. At this point, this season time in our lives, we've experienced some things, and we've experienced emotions. We've experienced failed relationships. We've experienced relationships based on certain things that didn't last. So that's our checklist. It can't be just based on my sexual needs because I'm missing needs in other areas.
Right.
So I think.
So, yeah. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, baby.
Yeah. I was just thinking really, I love when you talk about, when you talked about when we were dating. Yeah, I know you do it now, but I don't. Anyway, that you would study me, studied me, and I think if we feel like intimacy is waning in a relationship, how much are you studying your spouse?
Yes.
And also understanding how, we've talked about this, I think, in a previous episode, knowing how to express yourself and talk to your spouse about, here's what's going on with me right now. I need more of this, or I am feeling this way.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Well, intimacy, when we started dating and really, really got serious about our relationship, we were in two different places when it came to intimacy.
Yeah.
We were in two different places.
Right.
And so my desire was to be patient. I told you early in our relationship, I'm here. I ain't going nowhere. You know what I mean? This is what I want. I know this is what I want. This is what my intentions are. We talked about that in the last episode, being intentional.
Right.
And so even in that sense, understanding her level of intimacy, what intimacy is to her, expressing what mine is, being open about my desires and what I like and what I need, and you being open-minded enough to understand those things,
right.
to receive those things, me understanding where you were intimacy-wise, even sexually,
yes,
and to be patient with those, talk about it, but allow those things to happen organically or not happen at all. You know what I mean? Or just to be patient and then still understanding that I'm okay with, where we're at. There's so many other things in our relationship that meet those needs of intimacy.
Right.
And so feeling comfortable and you feeling safe
Yes.
in your space,
Right.
in the space that I tried to create,
Yes. Yes.
that that open-mindedness about all the other things, it started to just appear and resonate, so
Right.
then things started to change.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to know where your partner is, or someone they may not be where you are,
Right.
intimacy wise, but
Yeah.
to talk about those things and to be open-minded, and then create a safe space.
Right. Safe space.
Create a safe
Like that has been something that keeps coming up. I think
Yeah.
that's really important
Yeah.
with intimacy. So when again intimacy has fallen or something has changed, in addition to checking in with yourself and making sure you're expressing yourself, studying your spouse and
Yes.
understanding what season they may be in. Oh wait, what did you just say? It was just a good point about the third point about intimacy, seasons, studying them. Oh gosh, it just left me.
And just creating a safe space.
The safe space,
Yeah.
creating a safe space
Yeah.
for the marriage, for the relationship.
Yeah.
Because I have seen when there is even a slight betrayal, and I'm not even just talking about someone goes out and cheats. It could be you've repeated a conversation that was between you and your spouse. You've shared it with a sister or best friend, and they find out about it, or you've done something that there feels like trust or betrayal, and that can impact intimacy.
Right.
So
Absolutely.
that's no longer a safe space.
Right.
So how are you creating a safe space? If you're constantly critical of your spouse, that can cause a lack of a safe space,
Right.
which impacts
The
intimacy.
Intimacy, absolutely. Absolutely. You want, we're talking about serious desiring and wanting and working towards serious, long-lasting relationships.
Right.
And so, like I said, we're in a moment in a point in our lives where we're seasoned, been there, done some things, experienced some things. So you want to get to the point where this is what I want, this is where I'm at, this is what my intentions are, and then working toward creating or repairing,
Yes.
if need be, that safety, and being realistic, man. We're, all of our desires are different.
Right.
We could have people watching this podcast who are of our age that, this is what I want is just intimacy and sex.
Yeah.
That's just what, I'm established, I'm good. But understanding that we as human beings, we're made to desire and want and need connection.
Yes.
Connection is important. Real, true, meaningful, intimate connection. And I think anything short of that's just physical, we're always selling ourselves short.
Yeah.
We're going to sell ourselves short, and because that's going to wane and that's going to change at some point, and then you're off looking for something else.
Yeah.
You're looking for something different. So it's important to nurture that intimacy and that safeness for the person, and create that space. We're just connected in just so many different ways.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah.
So I like really, really love that. Just thinking about, again, just how important intimacy is to a relationship,
baby.
to a marriage, and living in a home where there is no intimacy. Like your partner should know you. Like, yes. Again, you should feel known and know your partner, your spouse,
right,
more than anyone.
Yes.
And the little things and the big things.
Yes.
And if it's not there yet, that should be a goal. Like, what don't I know that I need to know?
I love coming home, and whatever our day has been throughout the day, I love, you okay? Yeah. You okay? Yes. I love the fact that I know her.
Yes.
I know her. I know when there's something disruptive or troubling or something going on in her head. That's for me, that's a connection that is hard to describe for me. I mean, I know how she feels about it. You know, he cares, he's concerned, he sees it. But for me to know that I know you, to know that you are my person,
right?
And you know,
or I love that
it.
He knows. I mean, those things are good too, but I love that he knows, like, if I get a new hairdo or I buy something, and he'll be like, "Oh, okay." And then 2 days later, I don't like this anymore. I knew that was coming because he knows kind of like my pattern, like what I like. I'll get really excited about something in the beginning, and then it wanes off. And it's like, I don't really like that about myself, but he knows how I am, and he's just like, that's who you are.
Right. Excited today and not as excited tomorrow.
But it's just the little things that, you know.
Yes, and that's not just when it comes to items. That's important to know your person, because that carries over into other aspects of our lives also.
Yeah.
Because what satisfies my partner today may not satisfy my partner 2 weeks from now.
Yeah.
So it's important to stay connected. It's important to know your person. It's important to know where they are. We talked about seasons.
Yes.
Seasons of intimacy. And then it's just to stay connected.
Yeah.
And always invested in that relationship. For me, that's important. If you're looking for and desiring true connection, a lasting relationship, again, I don't have the answers. I don't have all the answers. This is a subject that has 1,000 different opinions.
Yes.
And so we do value your feedback and your comments and your thoughts, even your experiences. Anything that you've experienced, you know, share it with us, share it with the public, you know. So that's just our take.
I want to touch on one more thing, 2 minutes before we end this podcast, because we have a lot of single people that watch this. And how do you suggest, you're just starting to date, but you sense that the other person is not trying to dive into too deep of conversations? And it may be that the person may not know how, because I think some people may not know how. How do we get to explore intimacy outside of the physical when you're starting a new relationship?
Well, we always talked about it in previous episodes about the honesty.
Yeah.
The open-mindedness, you know what I mean?
I think it's asking a lot of questions.
Yes. And being able to listen, and then being okay with whatever answer you may receive. You know, because just because it's different or something that you haven't experienced, it doesn't mean that it's bad. That's their experience.
Right.
And if it's their experience and it's a relationship that you're really truly interested in and you want to, then you have to be patient and continue to dive into those things and keep talking about those things. We always talk about our time is valuable, but our time is also meant to be invested in exploring what we think we may desire or want.
We didn't touch on this, but I think it's important. We touched on it in conversation, but not as a point for you all to really consider. But it's really important for you to understand your love language and the person you're with, their love language.
Right.
Because that'll help lead to intimacy, because if gift giving, and there's look at the book Love Languages, Google love language quiz, so you can find out the, I think, five love languages and figure out like your top 2. But if my love language is gift giving and I love to give gifts, that's how I love to express my love. That may not be his. That may be like, okay, that was nice, but I really just wanted you to tell me you loved me.
That's it. That's all right. Absolutely.
So just because it's your love language and you get excited about it, don't just assume that that's how they receive love.
Yes.
So I think, again, understanding that will help with any kind of intimacy.
Right. We talked about it in an earlier episode that what resonates with you may not resonate with me. It may be nice, but it doesn't resonate as far as what I need to feel like, we're connected. You know what I mean?
Right.
I could reach over and touch you, and you could look at me like,
why are you touching
why
me?
are you touching me? Because that doesn't resonate with
Right.
you. That's not your love language.
Right.
So it's important that communication is important. That effort, communication, intentionality, all those things develop the intimacy. It develops safe spaces. It develops the being comfortable with those conversations. You know what I mean?
I also think one of the first things, we had been dating obviously for a little while before we started premarital counseling, but the first 2 sessions we unpacked our family origins and unpacked any potential issues, childhood type issues that we may still carry or just have made us who we are. And I think at a certain point in a relationship, if there are questions you can ask to kind of dip into that subject, I think it can open up, a whole world of just intimacy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Knowing a person deeply and intimately, and knowing what their background is, and caring enough to ask those questions, curious enough to want to know your partner, your love interest, or that person that you want to develop this relationship with. It is an opportunity to develop more intimacy and to kind of understand where their thought process is with family, children, whatever it is.
Right. So, well, hopefully this has been helpful for you all.
Hopefully.
We have enjoyed
Yes.
talking about, again, intimacy, relationships, how all of that shows up and how we can do better with that. So thank you so much for watching. Please
Thank you.
Subscribe.
Yes.
And leave your comments.
Please.
Again, we start off saying we do not have this all together. We're not relationship experts by any means.
Yes.
But we want to help start amazing conversations because dialogue is, I just heard this quote. I think it was, dialogue is the engine to change.
Yes.
And so we need change in just marriages, divorce rates are high, all those things. And it starts with dialogue.
Yes. We just want your feedback on this subject. Could be a topic for another episode of our podcast, but let us know what you think, your comments, questions, and we appreciate it. Thank you so very much.
Bye-bye. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Love Lately. We hope today's conversation sparked some thoughts and maybe even some inspiration for your own love story.
Remember, love does not have an expiration date. It should always be evolving and growing, and so are we together.
If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, leave us a review, and share it with someone who might need a little encouragement in their love journey.
And if you have any questions or topics you'd like us to discuss, just drop us a line. We love to hear from you.
Until next time, keep finding, building, and enjoying love lately.